Greetings. Today is 6/13/2020, and I'm doing this video. It's pertaining to a high watch. Obviously, we're still here, so all past high watches were obviously not correct. But we're one day closer, and I'm glad for that. I actually wanted to do this video 2 weeks ago because that weekend was when most people believed was Pentecost. So a lot of people were thinking that the rapture was going to happen then. And my past video, I said that Pentecost is a high watch for the rapture because it's the first fruits. And the wise virgins, the Church of Philadelphia, the Congregation of Philadelphia, the elders, they are the first fruits of the kingdom. Okay. So the Messiah is the first fruits of the resurrection. The wise virgins, the Congregation of Philadelphia, the elders, which are all the same group, they are the first fruits of the harvest, the first fruits of the kingdom. Okay? So the Messiah needs the wise virgins to be in New Jerusalem for when he's crowned king. Because if we weren't there, then there would be no kingdom. It would just be him. But Revelation 4:1 is the first rapture. And then the wise virgins are there in New Jerusalem for the crowning of the Most High King. So I wanted to do this video 2 weeks ago when the most people believe was Pentecost, which is the Rabbinical calendar. However, I believe that calendar is wrong, and I'm planning on doing another video after this, hopefully before next weekend, about the calendar and because I did a video in the past called The Prophecy of Time, because the Almighty prophesied that we will corrupt time, which is exactly what happened. I mean, the ancient Israelites did it a short time after they got the calendar, the updated calendar with the Addendum with Moses, because there's basically the foundational calendar that the Almighty gave us has always been the same. It's a mathematical calendar, 30 days a month, 12 months in a year. But then there's 4 extra days when the season changes. So at the spring equinox, there's an extra day. So that would be the first month has 31 days instead of 30. Then on the summer solstice, there's an extra day. So from the transition to the third to the fourth month, there's an extra day, etc. So that foundational calendar is the same, and that was given to Enoch, who was the original prophet. And the book of Enoch, you know, it's not in our Bible, but I definitely 100% believe that it's scripture. Because even the Bible says that Enoch walked with the Almighty. So if he walked with the Almighty, why is the book of Enoch not scripture? Doesn't make any sense. And the fact is that he was the first prophet. The Almighty gave all the prophecies, at least the main ones, to Enoch. And then the rest of Scripture is basically confirming what the Almighty gave to Enoch. And Enoch was the first one to get the calendar, because when you look at creation, the ages, in the first age, the Almighty made the earth. So the Almighty made the earth first, before the sun, before the stars, right? And from in a past video, I share where Eden is. Eden is in the core of the earth. So the Almighty made the earth first, and He dwelt in Eden, in the core of the earth first. That was the first age. He didn't make the sun, the moon, the stars until the fourth age. And that's when he made the sun and moon stars for the telling of time. Right? The seasons. But He made that after He made the earth. The earth may not be the center of the universe, but it was the first thing that was made. Okay? And then New Jerusalem is in the core of the sun. So He moved. First He was in the core of the earth, was where His abode was, and then He moved it to the core of the sun. And that's where He's at right now, and that's where we go when we go to New Jerusalem. So He gave the first calendar to Enoch, which was strictly mathematical, and then the 4 extra days were the 4 days for the seasons. Then He adjusted it. Or I should say, He made an addendum for Noah. That was a fresh start. So for the calendar for Noah was he made 4 days of remembrance for Noah. So basically, they were like feast days in honor, in remembrance, in memorial of what occurred with Noah. Like the first day of Noah was when he got the command to build the ark. The second day of Noah was when the floods started to recede. The third was when I think it was he's seen the mountaintops. Or the abyss is closed, I think it was, and then the last day, Remembrance Day, Memorial Day, is when he's seen the mountaintops, dry land on the mountaintops. Okay, which is the first. It was the new moon of the first month, and then the new moon of the fourth month, the new moon of the seventh month, and then the new moon of the 10th month. Yes, 10th month. So that was the second calendar. Everything else was the same. The seasonal days were still there. 364 days, 30 days per month, 52 weeks, etc., etc. That was all the same. But the adjustment was he made those 4 days as a remembrance, a memorial to honor Noah. Okay, got written in the tablets in New Jerusalem. And then the final calendar, the one that we should be observing properly right now, was the one that he gave to Moses. Because Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the 12 sons of Israel, 12 sons of Jacob, they knew how to tell time. They did everything proper. Okay. They got it from the angels. And they were doing everything properly. Alright, but what happened was, when they were in Egypt for those 400 years, they completely lost all knowledge of the Almighty. And they completely assimilated into Egypt. So when the Almighty brought them out, He gave them another addendum to the calendar, and He basically fixed the days as feasts. So we no longer have to look for the new moon. Rather, on the 10th day of the first month is when the Passover lamb is chosen. Okay. So now the days are fixed. We're not looking for the new moon as in for Noah. But anyway, I'll get into all that in the next video. This video is about the high watch that's coming up. Extremely high watch. I wanted to do it 2 weeks ago when, it would have been the Friday before the Rabbinical Pentecost. And the reason why I wanted to do it then was just to basically let everybody know that yes, it was a watch, but don't get your hopes up. Because I had a gut feeling that nothing was going to happen for the simple fact of Matthew 24:44, where the Messiah tells us that He's going to come when we think not. And when you look at the Greek, that phrase basically means we're not going to be able to perceive it. So we're not going to be able to perceive the timing. Alright? So the fact that a large portion, well, I shouldn't say a large portion, but a lot of people looked to Pentecost for the rapture. Now most of Christianity don't understand that there's multiple raptures, but a lot of them are still looking at Pentecost. So that simple fact, I had a strong gut feeling that nothing was going to happen, and it didn't happen. But anyway, I didn't have time to do the video, and hopefully this comes out all right, because I've noticed I'm getting worse and worse with doing videos. But we'll see what happens, okay? Let's start off with the date. So today is actually the 88th day of the year, 28th day of the third month of the first year of the first week in the 121st Jubilee. Okay. So we are now in the 6,000th year since the start of the Jubilee count. And the Jubilee count began in 3980 BC when the Almighty took a caveman from Earth, brought him into Eden, and transformed him into Adam. Basically made him into an energy being. For them 7 years that Adam and Eve were in Eden, they were energy beings, similar to the angels, the holy angels. But when they sinned, they got stripped of the glory, which is they got put into flesh. Okay. And that was 6,000 years ago. And the Almighty told us that He's only going to strive with flesh for 120 Jubilees. Okay? So right now, we just entered the 121st. Meaning, within this next 50 years, human flesh will end. The final generation, it's not a slogan, it's literal. Flesh cannot inherit the kingdom. So, there are no survivors. There are nobody who, hides out under a porch when the Antichrist comes out of the abyss and gets to sneak on by. That doesn't happen, right? In Revelation 14, 12 to 20, it's the final separation of human flesh, all right? All right? Scripture says that He kills all who refuse the mark. So either you take the mark and become a hybrid, and you're no longer human, or you refuse the mark and you're killed. It's the end of human flesh. Revelation 14, 12 to 20. Those who refuse it are killed and then raptured up to New Jerusalem as the final harvest, the final rapture. And those who take the mark are gathered and thrown into the winepress. And that's actually where Babylon the Great is created at that point. Babylon the Great's not America. Babylon the Great's not the Vatican. Babylon the Great's not the New World Order or whatever other baloney flavors being taught. Babylon the Great is created by the mark. The mark is the DNA of Apollyon being forced upon humans to make them into hybrids. Genetically engineered, genetically manipulated, whatever you want to say. Hybrids. And that's what we see in Daniel 2:43, I think it is, where it says that they will mix with the seed of men, but it won't work. Just like iron and clay don't mix. That's what's going on. Apollyon forces his DNA upon humanity. Alright? So, to the point of the video, and oh yes, I must give my most sincere apologies about the last video. I rambled on for 2 hours. I mean, I know most people don't have time to listen to me flapping my gums for 2 hours, so I try to. But I just love talking about the Messiah, talking about the Almighty, researching, searching, seeking, doing. I love it. So I could do it for 5 hours, but I know most of us don't have time for that, so I try to keep it short. But if anybody has been paying attention to my videos, you know that usually doesn't happen. But anyway, so in the past, I truly thought that the first rapture would be around Passover, because it's the Passover pilgrimage. Alright? The 3 pilgrimage feasts are a rehearsal for the 3 raptures. Okay? So you have the Passover pilgrimage, when the ancient Israelites would make a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, to the temple, for the Passover and unleavened bread. Okay? Then they would make a pilgrimage again for Pentecost. And then they would make a pilgrimage again to the temple, to Jerusalem, for Tabernacles. Okay? Now, because I knew that these were rehearsals for the raptures when we actually go to the real temple in New Jerusalem, because like Paul says, all these rituals, these feasts, they are copies of the real thing in New Jerusalem. So the way the camp was laid out in ancient Israel, where you had the tabernacle, and then you had the priests, or the ones right next to it, north, south, east, and west. And then behind the priests were the camps of Israel, north, south, east, and west. Camp of Judah, camp of Reuben, camp of Ephraim, camp of Dan. All right. Then you have the 4 horns of the altar, which are the 4 holy angels of the presence of the Almighty. They were the chiefs over the camps. And then the 10 horns were the chiefs over the Gentiles. So I, because of the fact that it's the Passover pilgrimage, I thought it was going to be around the time of Passover, first fruits of the barley. All right, that was the mistake I made. All right. Then about a month ago, because of the simple fact that it didn't happen, and that I believe that it should definitely happen this year, and the fact that the first rapture didn't happen at that time, well, I had to go back to the drawing board. And then I realized that the first fruits of the barley, which I thought was the rehearsal for the first rapture of the wise virgins, congregation of Philadelphia, I thought they were the first fruits of the barley. But then I realized that the first fruits of the barley was brought to the temple, to the priests, with the Passover lamb, so that the nation would be accepted. Once I realized that, I knew that it wasn't the wise virgins, that it was the Messiah. The Messiah is the first fruits of the barley and the Passover lamb. Okay, I thought he was just the Passover lamb back then. I was wrong about that. Once I realized that, then I knew that the wise virgins, the congregation of Philadelphia, the elders, that they're the first fruits of the harvest, which ultimately is the first fruits of the kingdom. All right? And Pentecost is the ritual, the ceremony for the first fruits. So I did my last video saying that Pentecost is an extremely high watch, because we're the first fruits. All right? However, I believe Pentecost was a week before the Rabbinical calendar. And even the most people that follow what they call the Enoch calendar, they were basically saying that Pentecost was the same as the Rabbinical calendar, because a lot of them start the count, the Omer count, on the 26th, which I believe is incorrect, and I'll show you that in the next video. But anyway, so I did the video just to, let everybody know that it's a high watch. And long story short, we're still here, so it wasn't right. Okay? And then after it didn't happen, I was thinking about it, and it makes complete sense that it didn't happen on Pentecost, because basically Pentecost was fulfilled with the Spirit coming down to the apostles. All right? And for the simple fact that the Messiah tells us we're not going to be able to perceive when he comes. And Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21, it's a little difficult to discern everything that the Messiah is talking about. because number one, you got to understand that his coming is a process. It's a 6+ year process. Like right here, in Revelation 6:1, when he says with the voice of thunder, I come, and then he has his crown that he gets, which is paralleled in Daniel 7:14, when he gets his kingdom dominion after he's presented to the Almighty. So Daniel 7:12 and 13, and anyway, yeah, Daniel 7, I think it's 12 and 13 and 14 and 15, somewhere around there. It's a forerunner to the revelation. We see the throne set up. We see the angels and the wise virgins around the throne. Then we see the Messiah presented, and then he has his kingdom. All right, and that's the same exact thing that happens in Revelation 4 and 5. So Daniel gave it to us first. Actually, Enoch gave it to us first, but then Daniel gave it to us, and then John gave us the revelation via the angel who got it from the Messiah, who got it from the Almighty. And this is when he starts his coming process. Revelation 6:1. With the voice of thunder, I come. Then he has a bow, which is Michael, and it's empty because he already shot out the arrows, which are the other 3 holy angels. Seals 2, 3, and 4. Okay? Which is, I have some visuals right here. Boom, boom, and boom. Alright? So, Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21. They're a little tricky, I admit. They're a little tricky. Even, how he goes from the seals to the trumpets, talking about the mark being set up, and then he brings it back to the seals. It's tricky. And then he's answering 3 different questions about what the apostles ask him. When will these things happen? When's the end of the age? And what's the sign of your coming? All right. And then there's 2 different signs. You got the sign of it when he comes, and then you got the sign of the Son of Man. All right. So it is a little tricky, I admit. But with the Spirit of truth, we can work through it. So, went back to the drawing board. I still believe the first rapture is the Passover pilgrimage. Right? It's just a matter of when it happens. The second rapture is the Pentecost pilgrimage. We know pretty much almost exactly when that happens because the trumpets occur on the Feast of Trumpets, which is the 10th day of the 7th month. And then you just subtract 30 days from that, and that's the 7th seal. Alright? But we're looking for the first rapture. And the first fruits of the harvest. And this is why it's a little tricky. This is why it makes perfect sense that the Messiah tells us we're not going to be able to perceive it. Because most other things in Scripture, the rehearsed events occur on the feast days. Alright? But this one doesn't. At least I don't think it does. Because it can happen. In ancient Israel, if you grew barley, wheat, pomegranates, grapes, whatever, if you were a farmer, you were able to cut off your first fruits and hold on to them until you were able to make a journey to Jerusalem to give it to the priests. So basically, the ancient Israelites were authorized to bring their first fruits of their harvest to the temple anytime between Pentecost and Tabernacles. Probably more specifically, any time between Pentecost and Atonement / Trumpets. Because I believe they're on the same day. I'll explain that in the next video. So, that makes perfect sense to go along with the Messiah says about we won't be able to perceive it. Because it could happen at any time. There's not a fixed feast day when it's going to be fulfilled, like most other things. Alright? So, what I did was, I looked for some clues. And one of the main clues that I believe is that summer's near. Okay. As we see in the parable of the fig tree. Okay. Summer's near. And then when we go throughout other scriptures, when Boaz was winnowing the barley, it was during the wheat harvest. Okay? And the wheat harvest was any time after Pentecost. It was basically when the official wheat harvest began. Okay? Then we see the Messiah has the winnowing fork in his hand, which I believe is pointing to around summer's near. When you look at the Song of Solomon, when it talks about the darling arises, it sounds like the transition from spring to summer. First figs ripe, the transition from spring to summer. The Messiah says, 4 months, then the harvest. Well, the 4th month is the start of summer. The transition from spring to summer. And then, here's a big clue. As he says, the Messiah tells us that he's at the door. Okay? Now, the first rapture is the door. So when he's talking about at the door, he's talking specifically about the first rapture Not the second rapture, the first rapture. Because the second rapture is the birth. But the first rapture is at the door. Okay? And same thing with 1 Thessalonians 5:3 to sudden destruction. It's talking about the beginning of the seals. So obviously it's the first rapture, not the second. So, some other clues we have here. Is when he says, nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. I've said this in the past, that I don't believe that nation against nation and kingdom against kingdom is talking about like a World War III or anything like that. I personally believe that when he says nation, first nation, he's talking about the four horns of the altar, which are over the nation of Israel, and the nation of Israel is the people of the Messiah. All right, it's not a bloodline. It's people who, Revelation 14:12, I believe it is. Those who obey the commandments of the Almighty and have faith in the Son. That's the nation of Israel. The people who do both. And the four holy angels of the presence, the four horns of the altar, they are the chiefs, the commanders of the nations of Israel. All right. Then you have the ten horns of the beasts. They're over the Gentile nations, meaning they're over the unbelievers. So basically, what I'm saying is that nation against nation is the four horns of the altar, the four holy angels, versus the ten horns of the beast, the enemy. Okay? And then when it says kingdom against, and then when the Messiah says kingdom against kingdom, that's talking about the kingdom of light versus the kingdom of darkness, the kingdom of good versus the kingdom of evil. I don't believe he's talking about war, as in humans versus humans, world war or anything like that. Now, there may be a world war during the time of the seals, I don't know. I mean, things are getting a little weird with us in China, so I wouldn't be surprised. But I don't think that's what it's talking about. And when you look at the wording even, when he says, for nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. Now, when you go to Daniel 12, you see, now at that time, the great prince, Michael, who stands guard over the anointed, will arise. Okay? I believe it's confirming each other. This is about the holy angels versus the enemy. The 10 horns of the beast. Because prior to President Trump, the end time Elijah, the end-time anointed ruler. Prior to him and his team, the 10 horns controlled the whole earth. Now, the Almighty, the Messiah, the 4 horns of the altar, they are going to be systematically dismantling what the enemy has done. And they're going to push the enemy. Because like I said, prior to Trump, the enemy had control of the whole world via the central banks, via debt. They used the principle that the borrower is slave to the lender. So, the devil took control of the Vatican. The Vatican was basically the original central bank. Then they branched out into actual central banks. And because they were lending money to nations, to kingdoms, then the kingdoms would be slaves to them on a national level. All right? And that's how they had control, via debt. But after, I mean, it's already started, but it's really gonna ramp up right here once he begins his coming process. And they're gonna systematically get dismantled and pushed back into the area of the greater Middle East, which is what right here the jurisdiction that's given, that's granted, that's authorized. That's something to keep into perspective, that they are only authorized this authority. Like I said before, this is like when someone's on death row and they get to pick their final meal, kind of like a little, you're about to be killed, so have one little last enjoyment. That's basically what this, when the Antichrist and the minions get released for that 7 years, it's basically kind of like a last meal on death row. Same principle. So this jurisdiction that they get in the fourth seal, it's not a promotion, it's a demotion. Because prior to that, they had control of the whole world. But they're going to get systematically dismantled, pushed back into the greater Middle East, which was the original area of the sons of Noah. Okay. So we have summer near. And what I think is going to be the big, at least I hope it is, for the sake of clarity. But I think 1 Thessalonians 5:3, hopefully it's a dramatic announcement that we can clearly see. Like I said in past videos, peace and safety, peace and security. When you look at the Greek, peace, for when they say peace, it's actually a reference to healing. That's why the Messiah, when he healed somebody, he would say, "Go in peace." as in, you're healed. No more need to be stressed out. Go in peace. So this in the Greek is actually a Hebrew, has a Hebrew connotation, that it's talking about health, welfare. And then safety/security seems to mainly mean that it's official, all right? But with these riots, it might literally mean safety. So if there's some type of announcement soon that, we're done being locked down from the virus, everything's opened up, or maybe even they'll announce that there's a therapeutic that basically heals it or does very well. And then as far as the safety or security, maybe it'll be in reference to the riots, or it just might mean that the health part is certain, like it's a done deed, it's a closed case. And then after that is the sudden destruction, which I believe is the first rapture, because 50 to 100 million people are removed from planet Earth. So either their bodies drop dead, and it appears as though 50 to 100 million people are dead, or 50 to 100 million people disappear. Either way, it's sudden destruction all over the world, not just America. America will probably have the most, but it's going to be worldwide. And like I said in the last video, when you do the calculation, and I'm talking about the most minute conservative calculation, is, and this goes for the same if the dead spirits are part of the Church of Philadelphia, Congregation of Philadelphia. Nothing changes, because this is just energy flowing off Earth into the wormhole to go to New Jerusalem. And basically they said that a human body, sitting still at the lowest, most conservative amount, is 100 watts of energy, which is equivalent to 10 volts. So at the most conservative calculation, we have 10 volts per person, times 100 million people is 1 billion volts. Moving in the twinkle of an eye. And like I said, that's a conservative calculation. It's probably going to be a lot more than that, but that is a lot of power moving across planet Earth to go into that wormhole. And more than likely, that's going to cause complications. So you have, 50 to 100 million people being removed, whether their bodies drop dead and just their spirits go, or everything goes. Either way, it's still a huge event, and it's going to cause destruction, no matter how you look at it. And then you add on to that all that energy. And then right after that is when every knee bows and every tongue confesses, which is Revelation 5:13, when the Messiah is crowned king. It does not go by unnoticed. Now, of course, they're going to play it off somehow, but hopefully we are not here to see how that plays out. But if we are, just have to do better. That's all. So, another clue that seems to be taking place is the General Michael Flynn. Now, this whole basically the Russian hoax, the impeachment farce, it's all circles around Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. All right. And the reason being is because Obama hates him because he stood up to him and told him he was wrong, and then told him that he was going to audit the intelligence agencies. So Obama fired him, and then they went right after him. And as you know, or probably know, that for these past 3 years, he's been fighting these court cases because they trapped them. However, I actually think the general trapped them. But anyway, I thought it's odd, being the fact that Michael is the chief. And when you look at it, it's Michael Flynn. Flying, as in the angel. But anyway, I think this might be some type of, when he gets free, that might be another clue. That's just a speculation, but something is going on with this, and it's big. All right. Now, another clue is in Psalm 19. Psalm 19, okay. Their line has gone out through all the earth, and their utterance to the end of the world. In them he has placed a tent for the sun. This is the same word as tabernacle, chuppah, right? Which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber. Okay? Now, this is like big time prophetic in my opinion, all right? First, we have the bridegroom coming, which I believe is a huge clue. Then we have chamber, and Enoch refers to the seasons, the doors to the seasons as chambers. Okay? And then this Hebrew word for the line, it's only in 4 places in Scripture. And most scholars believe that this is referring to a solstice or an equinox. All right? So it's talking about the solstice or the equinox. It's a tabernacle for the sun. It's like a tabernacle for the sun. Now, in other translations, let's see here. What does the King James say? Okay. right. Okay. So it's talking about the solstice and the equinoxes. That this, and in the other 4 verses that have that same Hebrew word, it talks about that the sun does its circuit, meaning you have the 4 lines, which would look like this. You have the 4 lines, okay? Chamber, 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 chamber. All right? But then it says, which is as a bridegroom coming. So this may be a clue that the bridegroom comes at one of these chambers, at one of these doorways, at one of these portals. Okay? So then when you deduce, you have everything pointing for the first rapture at the time of the spring transitioning to the summer, which would be the summer solstice. Okay? Now, I don't know if I have this down here, so I'm going to mention it now so I don't forget. Another thing about the summer solstice for this year is that there is a annular eclipse on it. And the eclipse can only happen with a new moon. A solar eclipse. A lunar eclipse can only happen with a full moon. But a solar eclipse can only happen with a new moon. Meaning that not only is it just an eclipse, but it's a new moon. And since it's going to be the start of the 4th month, that would actually be the 2nd day of Noah, meaning the days of remembrance. Alright? And the Messiah says, as it was in the days of Noah. When he says that phrase, it's actually specifically about the days of remembrance. Alright? New moon of the 1st month, new moon of the 4th month, new moon of the 7th month, new moon of the 10th month. Alright? So that's another clue, in my opinion. So it's a solstice. The bridegroom comes. And then the fact that it's a new moon, and it's the 4th month, that's actually a day of Noah. One of the days of remembrance. Okay? So now we have here I believe that Revelation 4:1 and Revelation 6:14 are wormholes. Alright? The first one's small, because it only needs to be big enough for the raptured spirits to go through to go to New Jerusalem. Alright? But the second one is gigantic because it actually needs to bring New Jerusalem through to come here to near space. Alright? So like I said before, concerning Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21, there's a lot of things going on in that chapter. It's tough to discern. And one of them is that there's two signs. Alright? There's the sign of his coming, which is the start, and then there's the sign of the Son of Man, which is he's here. Alright? And last year I did a video talking about when that black hole was they got a picture of the first black hole. And I basically said that that was a prophetic announcement to humanity, letting us know that humanity is going to transition from faith, which is the unseen, to evidence, which is the seen. Meaning, prior to Revelation 5:13, for the past 2,000 years, we had to rely on faith. Like the Messiah says to Thomas, "Blessed are they who believe and do not see." Okay? And for the past 2,000 years, we've been relying on faith, the unseen. But after Revelation 5:13, there's going to be evidence. Alright? And I believe that when scientists got that first picture of the black hole, which is, in my opinion, just a super gigantic wormhole. It was basically a prophetic signal to us that everything is near. And humanity is going to transition from the unseen, faith of the unseen, to evidence. Every knee will bow, every tongue will confess. Alright? Now, as I mentioned in the last video, I believe, because there's actually 5 annular eclipses between now and Trumpets 2026. Okay. And a long time ago, I actually thought that the annular eclipse, which is referred to as the Ring of Fire, it reminded me of a seal. Like when you look at this seal right here, you see, and I mentioned this in the last video. It's like when the process occurs, to me, it's like a heavenly sign of a seal being removed, taken off, opened. Okay? And basically this is what the book is that the Almighty has, that only the Messiah is found worthy to take and to open. Alright? Written on the front and back. 7 seals. Okay? And then interestingly, when you look at the eclipses for now until 2026, there is 5 to 6 rings of fire at annular eclipses. One's coming up next week, the 23rd or 24th. What do I have here? Summer solstice eclipse, USA, well, Jerusalem on Saturday, right? No, Sunday. So Sunday, next Sunday is the first one. Okay. Then you have 2021 the second. 23 could be the third. But even if it isn't, it doesn't really matter, because then you have third, fourth, fifth. Okay. So there's the 5 seals. And then there's a total eclipse right before the second rapture, which, in my opinion, would be like, when it says the sun turns sackcloth. Okay, so either there's if you include this, there's 6. If you don't, then there's 5. But anyway, to me, it's like a heavenly sign that the seals are being opened. Okay, and I said this a while ago, and here is a picture of the first ever black hole. And to me, it looks like it resembles an annular eclipse, the Ring of Fire. Okay? So, we have summer near. We have at the door, referencing first rapture, solstice, chamber, door, chariot is a solstice or an equinox. We have the peace and safety announcement. Hopefully it'll be dramatic, so we'll know. And the first fruits can be in time between Pentecost and Tabernacles. But since everything else points to summer, near, or the transition from spring to summer, I believe the highest watch is in between now and the start of summer. Okay? Then we have the black hole, sign of his coming, sign of the Son of Man. Alright? Now, we have, throughout Scripture, when the Almighty talks about when He comes, and the same thing with the Messiah, when He comes, it's the common denominators are fire, sword, storm. Okay? When Elijah came to restore Israel, because they were hijacked by a wicked establishment and false prophets, which is what we're dealing with right now, a wicked establishment and fake media. Alright? He came first with fire. The Almighty rained down fire, licked up the offering, which I believe is a picture of the first rapture. Then He brought the sword and slayed the false prophets. And then right after that, the storm comes. And this was to establish righteousness and return to the law, because they were lost. It was a civil war. And frankly, I've been saying for a long time, many years, that I believed that the nation versus nation and kingdom against kingdom is not talking about world war or anything like that. Same thing with the second seal. You know, Christianity has been teaching that that is war. I don't believe it's war. I believe it's judicial punishment. That the men are given judicial authority to slay other men, meaning death penalty. Okay? And while I was saying that for a long time, many years, that I don't believe it's war, what I was saying is that I believe America is going to go through like a civil war. And that's what we see right now. Okay? And with the false prophets, they started cutting themselves and stuff like that. And that's what we see these anarchists doing. Trying to kill, destroy their own home. Right? And Black Lives Matter, white privilege, all that baloney is the globalists trying to undermine our Declaration of Independence, our Constitution. Because when they're saying BLM, Black Lives Matter, number one, it's deceit. They are a Marxist, communist organization that wants the destruction of America so they can bring in their order, their New World Order, their One World Order. It has nothing to do with Black lives, and that's blatantly obvious for the fact that they care about this one guy, but they don't care about the 18 that were killed in Chicago in one day. Right? Like, it's just, you really gotta have your brain turned off not to see through this baloney. Alright? But BLM, it's the globalists trying to undermine the fact that America was founded on all men are created equal. No. It's not only Black Lives Matter. It's not only White Lives Matter. It's not only Tan Lives Matter. It's all lives matter. All created equal. Same thing with white privilege. It's just another way of saying all are not created equal. It's the globalists trying to undermine our Declaration of Independence, which was the first law of our land. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The enemy has been trying to destroy that for the past 200 years. And they've basically succeeded. However, we're about to resurrect it. We're about to restore it. That's what the ministry of Elijah was. Restoration. That's what the ministry of the end time Elijah is. President Trump. Restoration. Right? So we also see the Messiah starts his conquest with a parallel to the ministry of Elisha, which makes complete sense because Elijah, the end time Elijah, comes to prepare the way. Right? And the Messiah tells us that he comes to cast fire upon the earth. He also says he comes with the sword. He also says that he comes on the storm. Same thing. Elijah, fire, sword, storm. Messiah, fire, sword, storm. Now, here is the amazing part of the whole purpose of this video. Now, I didn't try to do anything, okay? I found this. And when I seen it, I was flabbergasted, okay? Because last year, I believe the name of the video was Covenant or something like that. And I did a video last year saying that Ezekiel 1 is a huge clue for a high watch for the first rapture. Because when you read Ezekiel 1, it's talking about, okay, where are we at here? Oh, got a little itch. Alright. Ezekiel. Oh, shoot. I'm working in the dark here. Don't ask me why I have all the lights off. Oh yeah, maybe because it's the middle of the night. Okay, so you see. Alright. Ezekiel 1. Now it came about in the 13th year, on the 5th day of the 4th month. Alright? The heavens were opened, and I saw visions of the Almighty. And then he repeats it on the 5th of the 4th. Okay? And as I looked, behold, a storm wind was coming. Fire flashing. A bright light. Okay? And then it talks about the living beings, which is the seals. The start of the Messiah's coming. Alright? And he gets this vision on the 5th day of the 4th month. And like I said, it's repeated. Now I think that's a huge clue. And I did a video last year on it. That it's a high watch. Every year, on the 5th day of the 4th month, you should be on high alert. Period. Because what Ezekiel sees is exactly what John sees for the seals. Okay? Now, okay, alright, whatever. 5th day of the 4th month, high watch, okay, good. We'll watch. But now look at the calendar that I did in reference to what I believe how the Almighty gave us the telling of time. 5th day of the 4th month. Summer solstice eclipse. Okay? And it's also the 2nd day of Noah, the Remembrance. Because like I said, a solar eclipse can only happen on a new moon. Now, of course, it's a perfectly new moon where you don't see the slither. It's the exact new moon. So then, the following day is when you would see the slither. But my point is that there's a summer solstice eclipse, which is extremely rare. It's It's a Ring of Fire eclipse. Messiah says he comes in fire. The Almighty says he comes in fire. Okay? It looks like a seal being opened. Alright? Now, like I said, I couldn't make that up. I didn't make that up. After Pentecost, on the calendar that I keep, okay, so I did that video somewhere in here, and I said that this weekend was a high watch because it was Pentecost and the first fruits of the harvest can occur any time between Pentecost and Tabernacles, right? But I figured because it's Pentecost that it's a high watch, right? But I didn't really have a good sense in my spirit about this day, this weekend, or even this weekend, that with the following weekend after, which would have been when the Rabbinical calendar has Pentecost. Everybody was watching on basically 529 to 531. Okay, the Rabbinical calendar had Pentecost on that weekend, and then, like I said, most of the people who do the Enoch calendar, they believe it was on that weekend too, because they start the Omer count a week after me. They started on 526, which, like I said, I'll get into that next video. But anyway, but I still watched on these weekends, even though I didn't have a gut feeling that it was the right timing. I still watched because, just in case. Right? And like I said, when you look at all the things that are going on here, to me, it's a high watch period, all right? Israel comes to Sinai, they set up the camp, the tabernacle set up, the throne set up, all right? They, the Almighty comes down, all right? Speaks with Moses and thunder. Moses and Aaron ascend, gets the instructions, comes down, gives Israel the instructions. Israel says yes. Moses and Israel confirm the covenant in blood. Then Moses ascends with Aaron and the sons and 70 elders. Okay. Moses spends a week, and then Moses enters into the glory with the Almighty and stays there for 40 days and 40 nights. So, I just figured all of this is a high watch, alright? And like I said, it's better to be watching and be wrong than to not be watching and be wrong. Alright? So, now, fast forward to the present. We are right here. The 88th day of the year, 328, 1 week prior to the summer solstice eclipse. So, an eclipse on the solstice is very rare. So right there's a sign, a heavenly sign. It's the Ring of Fire. Fire, that's a heavenly sign. It looks like a seal. That's a sign. Alright? And then it's occurring on the 5th day of the first month, which is exactly when Ezekiel seen the vision of the heavens opening, which is exactly what John sees for the first rapture. You see where I'm going with all this? Ezekiel 1:1 equals Revelation 4:1 equals John 4:35 equals Luke 22:18 equals Daniel 7:14 equals Revelation 6:2 equals the kingdom comes. Alright? So here's the chart. Fire. Elisha. Almighty answers with fire, licks up the offering, which I believe is the first rapture. The fire comes with the open door. Matter of fact, I have a good image. Here it is. I mean, to me, this is like a perfect image. And I talked about this in a couple videos in the past. That the reason why I believe the first rapture in the history of Elijah is when the Almighty sends fire down to lick up the offering, is because when you see the Almighty rain down fire, he opens up like a wormhole for that to occur, because he's in New Jerusalem. He opens up a wormhole, sends down fire. Wow, basically it's a solar flare. Okay? And, I mean, I found this image, and to me, it's like a perfect image. So this would be the open door in heaven. And, like, this is another image that I believe is a good image, which is the mini wormhole that we've been talking about. Okay? The Almighty, or I should say the Messiah, has the keys of David, which is the ability to open up a wormhole. And I believe these two images are very good pictures of what I believe is going to occur. You know? In near space, a little wormhole is going to open up. You're going to hear the sound of a trumpet blast grow louder and louder. And wham! The congregation of Philadelphia, the wise virgins, the elders, are going to be removed. Probably 50 to 100 million living people are either going to be removed, body and all, or just their spirits are going to be removed, and you're going to have 50 to 100 million bodies drop dead. Alright? Sudden destruction. Now, tell me, is this exciting or what? Like, I have... gotta be honest, in my mind, you know, all my past high watches, in my mind, they made sense, but I never had a good gut feeling about any of them, you know? Even though everything made sense on paper. And of course, I shared the information just in case. But I actually have a good gut feeling about these next couple days. And we'll see what happens, but so we have the fire with Elisha. Then we have the fire with Ezekiel. Then we have the Almighty tells us that He comes in fire. The Messiah tells us that He comes to cast fire upon the earth. And Elisha, Israel, they fall on their faces. which to me is a parallel, a mirror to Revelation 5:13, when every knee will bow and every tongue confess. All right. Then the sword. We see Elijah kills the false prophets of Baal with the sword. All throughout the book of Ezekiel, we see the sword. Ezekiel 21, the Almighty draws out his sword. Isaiah 34:66, Deuteronomy 32, the Almighty comes with his sword. The Messiah, he starts his conquest with the sword, which is the second seal. Ezekiel falls on his face, which, like I said, again is another picture of Revelation 5:13, when all of creation falls on their face. Right? Elijah, the storm comes right after the sword. Fire, sword, storm. Ezekiel 1:4, we see the storm. The Almighty comes on the storm, right? On top of the storm. We see Psalm 83, Isaiah 29, Jeremiah 23:30, Zechariah 9:14. Right? There's a big one. Okay, and then the Messiah starts his conquest with the voice of thunder. All right, Matthew 24:27. So there's some more clues, in my opinion. And then, so I basically predict the size of Philadelphia, the wise virgins, the elders, to be between 100 and 200 million. And I'm not 100% sure if this includes the dead, but I would think so. All right. But no matter what, it's going to be a significant event. All right. And if you make it, great. That means you made the first team. You obviously loved the Almighty and the Messiah and did your duty. Great. If you don't make it, all right, hey, not everybody makes the first team. All right, it's just part of life. So the good news is that we'll have about 6 years to get it right, to fine-tune our relationship, our obedience, our actions, our works. Okay? I mean, I'm hoping and praying that I make it, but I have no idea. Alright? I do my best to keep the commandments. I do my best, And the Almighty never expected us to be perfect. Not even back in the beginning. Why do you think there was sin offerings, guilt offerings, peace offerings? Alright? He never expected us to be perfect. Period. Alright? And all those rituals with the offerings and all that was all designed for relationship. Okay? The commandments and the statutes and ordinances, they're all designed to help us, not to hurt us. Okay? It's civilized. All right? A civil society. Health it was for health. Okay? And the rituals of the sin offerings, the guilt offerings, the peace offerings, that was so back then when they messed up, when they made a mistake, rather than hiding or, you know, shying away from the Almighty, He wanted you to do the ritual to keep you close to Him, to keep you in relationship with Him. Right? That's what it was designed for. To stay in relationship rather than to shy away or to hide. And then that same principle goes for us today. When we mess up or whatever, we're not supposed to hide or run away or throw our hands up and throw in the white towel or whatever. No, we're supposed to go to the Almighty in prayer, knowing that our wonderful Savior and Messiah mediates for us, and washes us clean from those sins, those lawless deeds. All right? So, with that being said, I do my best, but I know, I'm not dumb enough to think I'm perfect, and I'm not dumb enough to think that I'm the judge. I mean, even if I was doing my duty, well, maybe the Almighty has a job for me to do. I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm not the judge, so I don't pretend like I'm gonna make the first rapture. I'm hoping, I'm praying, I'm doing my best, but if it doesn't happen, I'm still gonna continue. That's for sure. I'm still gonna continue having faith, holding on, doing my best, and helping as best as I can, and whatever else I can do, whatever plan the Almighty has for me. But yeah, I'm definitely hoping and praying that I make the first rapture, praying that I'm accounted worthy to escape all the things that come, to be a part of the Church of Philadelphia, the Congregation of Philadelphia, the Wise Virgins, the Elders, to enter the open door in heaven that goes to Kadesh, Jerusalem, to be kept from the hour of trial and temptation, to be redeemed, washed, consecrated, anointed, and to stand before the Messiah, Yahushua, and then be presented with the Messiah to the Almighty at His throne. That's what I pray for. That's what I'm hoping for. But at the same time, I'm not going to assume that that's a done deal. So, no matter what, I did this video to show you that I believe this week, especially next Sunday, Monday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, that weekend, are extremely high watches. But even these next couple days are extremely high watches because spring ends on Tuesday. Alright? So, and I always thought that, there would be at least a week in advance, because we're talking about 100 million people going into New Jerusalem. I don't know, maybe it is all going to happen in a day or two. But I would have thought it would have been like a week. But bottom line is that these next couple days, week and a half are extremely high watches. And with this incredible celestial heavenly sign on the exact day that Ezekiel's seen the heavens open, to me that's given us a huge clue for an extremely high watch. Alright? That's what I'm saying. Alright, we went over this on the last video. And then I just wanted to reiterate that he tells us we're not going to be able to perceive his coming. Which makes sense because the first fruits of the harvest can be picked at any time, cut off at any time between Pentecost and Tabernacles. However, like I said, we have clues. And I think the strongest clues is that it's at the transition from spring to summer. Now, if nothing happens this week, then basically we are on a high we are watching all the way up until Tabernacles. Then if nothing happens by then, it's basically not until next spring. But there's a few clues why I believe it should definitely happen this year. But I was saying that same thing last year, so I'm not going to act like I'm certain about this. Alright? I have a good hunch that this is it. With everything that's going on, with the timing of the investigations, into the treason and all that, because like I said, I believe the great sword is judicial punishment for men to slay men, meaning the death penalty. Alright? And something to take into consideration about that is that Elijah, he had Israel seize the false prophets and got them. But Ahab and Jezebel still continued. So the establishment, the higher-ups still went on after that. It wasn't until Elisha, when Jezebel, which I believe represents the wickedness that controls the establishment, until she got defeated. But, this is a much bigger scale. So, see what happens. But I definitely believe justice is coming. It's going to be swift. And a new thing I learned just this week is, like we talked about a couple videos ago, that something to take into perspective about the seals is that they're not short periods of time. Like, it's the whole period of time when that horse is riding, it's representing a long period. Like, for instance, the first seal. He starts and he keeps continuing and continuing to win. All right? Meaning 1,000 years. Because it isn't finished until the devil and his minions are thrown into the burning fire. Same thing with the second seal. You know what I mean? This is justice, and tranquility is removed, or prosperity. Because that word for when it says that peace is removed in the Greek, it could either mean the day-to-day tranquility of life, meaning it's never going to be the same after that. There isn't going to be the regular tranquility that we had relatively, or it could also mean prosperity. So prosperity is removed, and then the great sword's given. The judicial punishment is granted for men to slay men, meaning the death penalty. All right, and that's a long period. And then President Trump recently tweeted a remarkably prophetic tweet, and my advice to you all is to pay attention to what he says, because he says so many prophetic things, and I don't know if he knows it. I don't even know if he knows who he is. In my opinion, he's very humble for how rich and powerful he is. Yeah, he likes to recognize that he's doing a good job and stuff like that. But there's nothing wrong with that. That's a principle of David. David encouraged himself. Right? I mean, if you look at President Trump objectively, you will see that he is doing a phenomenal job, that what he says is appropriate. You know, people cry about that he's a straight talker, and that's ridiculous. I think it's refreshing that we have somebody telling us how it is most of the time, right? And then he just says so many things that are prophetic. But, I mean, I wish I knew. But I don't know. I don't know if he knows that he's the end time Elijah. Like I know how he came about. I don't know if he knows that it's Michael and Gabriel that are working with him. I mean, Moses knew. Elijah knew. So I would assume he knows. But I totally advise to pay attention to his tweets, to what he says. And the tweet he said the other day that it was super prophetic was he said that the left, or I should say that the Democrats have gone so far left that they will eat their own children, right? And you know, to the average person, that might sound outrageous or off the wall, but to us true believers, that's an extremely prophetic statement, because it's pointing us to the third seal. And what I realized recently in my studies was that I don't believe that the third seal horse rider is holding a pair of balances, a pair of scales, like most translations say. Okay. Oh, shit. All right. So most translations say that it's the black horse rider, which is Phanuel, the angel with the face of the man. Okay, and most translations say that he has a pair of scales. All right. Recently, I don't believe it's a pair of scales. I believe it is a yoke, which would look something like. Okay, we already did this, so I don't need this. So you have like this right here. This is a yoke, and it holds the two ox together so that they work in unison. All right. And the reason why I say I believe it's a yoke and not scales is because every other place in the Greek in the New Testament where it used that word, it was talking about a yoke. And the only place that they translated as scales is in the third seal. So I've concluded I don't believe it's scales. I believe it's a yoke. And the black horse rider is holding a yoke. And then it says about the black horse rider, he sat on it, had a yoke, and I heard something like a voice in the center of the four horns of the altar, the four angels of presence, saying, a quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, but do not damage the oil and the wine. Okay. So what I believe the yoke represents is the yoke of bondage. It's going to be removed. And then the yoke of unity is going to be brought in. It's twofold. Okay? So the yoke of bondage for the good guys is going to be removed. But then, like for instance in America, or like I said, I believe we're going to be not going like to world war or anything like that, but it's more going to be like a civil war. That unity is going to be brought in at that time. And then it says a quart of wheat for a denarius and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, but do not damage the oil and the wine. And this is pointing back to the time of Elisha, when they were going through an extreme famine. And this is where President Trump's tweet comes in. Because the woman wanted to eat her child and was going to share it. Okay, that's how bad it was. But then Elisha prophesied and said that it was going to change. And they didn't believe him. But what happened was that the Armenians came down to war against Israel. At that time, it was the northern part, the northern kingdom, so it was literally the northern kingdom of Israel. Judah was separate at that time. They already had their civil war and separated. And the Armenians came down to fight against northern Israel, northern kingdom of Israel. And they were camped out in this massive army camp. And they were a powerful kingdom at that time. And the angel of the Almighty came down and scared them. And they ran for their lives. Didn't pack up. They just ran and took off. Left everything there. And then Israel came in and got it all. So they went from this horrific famine where This woman was ready to eat her kid, that it was that bad, and share it. To the next day, they were rich because they had all the food and silver and gold and weapons that the Armenians just left there. And what I'm saying is that it's a huge transfer of wealth. Okay? And honestly, my analysis is that when they do the great sword of judicial justice, these people that are going to be arrested are extremely wealthy. And President Trump did an executive order in the beginning of his his term, and the executive order basically said that crimes against humanity, their assets can be seized. So if somebody is charged with crimes against humanity and then found guilty, all their assets go to the American government. So what I believe is going to happen is that they're going to arrest a lot of bad people, seize their assets, and it's going to be a massive transfer of wealth from the wicked to the righteous overnight, just like the time of Elisha. Okay? And I believe that's why his tweet was so prophetic. It's because he said that the Democrats have went so far left that they're eating their children. All right? So, and then the other night, this happened because, like a lot of people complain that that justice isn't being served with all these people that committed treason and stuff like that. But, I know patience is difficult, but you gotta view these things in perspective. All right, because the good guys, they follow the rule of law. So when you do things properly, you gotta investigate, get the evidence, build your case, and all these things take time. All right? Like President Trump couldn't just come in and just start arresting all these lawless people and think that they're just going to get tossed into jail. That's not how it works. Number one, they had all kinds of rogue, deep state roadblocks all within the Department of Justice, the FBI, the courts, the bureaucracies. They were everywhere. So President Trump and his team, they've been systematically removing these roadblocks and putting in good guys. So for when the time comes, because you only get one shot. You don't want somebody as wicked as these people are getting off the hook for some kind of ridiculous, flaw in your investigation. So these things take time. Okay? And a lot of people don't see what's going on, how much progress is being made. All right? And a perfect example is what happened recently. Okay? This I'm just going to be frank, all right? This death, in my opinion, is fake. Alright? Now, how they do it, I don't know. Did he really die? Or did they put him in the ambulance and take him away and send him to Costa Rica? I don't know. I don't know how they do it. But I know it's fake. It's rehearsed. It's pre-planned. They're called false flags. And they're designed, they're meant to do a mission. Okay. This wasn't what the public's being told, alright? Now, even if he did die, and like what we've seen on TV is basically how it happened, it's still pre-planned. He probably had some type of debt or something. Somehow was involved, and they gave him they gave him the choice: do this, and we'll take care of this. We'll take care of your family. If you don't do this, you're going down the hard way. I don't know how exactly all the little fine. I don't know how they all play out, but what I do know is that it's fake, pre-rehearsed, pre-orchestrated. It's a mission. It's for a specific purpose. And the purpose was for the riots, for the anarchy, because the virus failed. Okay, that was supposed to last until the election. Because this whole goal is for mail-in ballots. Alright. The good guys secured the electronic voting. So they no longer can cheat with electronic voting. The border's been pretty secure. So they no longer can ship in illegals to vote for them. So the only thing basically that they believe they have left is the mail-in ballots. So they needed a cover. Alright? And the virus was the first attempt, but that failed. Okay? And, the good guys, President Trump and his administration, they did the right thing. Okay. Now, I don't like government trying to tell us what to do. But they did the right thing. For the simple fact is they didn't know what it was in the beginning. Okay? All they knew was that it was moving quickly. Okay? So put yourself into President Trump's shoes. Okay, you're the President of the United States of America. Your duty is to protect we the people. Alright? And now, President Trump, he prefers peace. He prefers reciprocal relationships. Meaning he wants to make deals with everybody that benefit everybody. Like, he doesn't view people as enemies. He views people as, or I should say nations, as potential partners, right? So, you have the people, the warmongers, who basically want war with China, want war with Russia, want war with Iran, want war with North Korea. He's not like that. This is one of the reasons why they hate him. Okay? He doesn't want war. He wants business partners. Where we're trading And it's not just good for me, but it's good for you too. And that's what he wants between us and China. That's what he wants between us and Russia. That's what he wants between us and Iran. You know, if you listen, I mean, come on. 50 years. We were basically not at peace with North Korea, and he walked across the demilitarized zone line. And it's like, they just threw that in the gutter. Like it was no big deal. That was a huge deal. That he made peace with North Korea. Alright? And same thing goes with China. He doesn't want World War III with China or Russia or anybody else. He wants to make deals that benefit both parties. Reciprocal. So basically, he kind of gives nations the benefit of the doubt, so to speak. You know? He wants to give it a shot first before he just, you know, he doesn't want to go in guns blazing, is what I'm saying. And, you know, at that point in time, we just made a deal with China. And it was a long drawn out deal. And then we made the deal with China. And then all of a sudden, we get this virus from them. Alright? Now, the reason why I said he did the right thing is because we didn't know what it was. Alright? In the beginning. So, 2020, viruses can be manipulated, engineered. So they didn't know if we were dealing with some kind of crazy Franken virus that's highly transmissible and can kill pretty easily. They didn't know. So in my opinion, excuse me, they did the right thing. Okay? Now, do I think the governors are doing the right thing? No. I think they've got power hungry and are being tyrannical. The demon rat governors. Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York. Well, actually, New Jersey seems to be doing alright, but New York, Pennsylvania, Michigan, that lady is way out there. But anyway, so he did the right thing, because we just didn't know what was going on, what it was. So, you know, they slowed us down. You know, he put out the guidelines, and ultimately, we didn't have to shut down. He allowed the governors to make that choice. It's the governors that shut us down. All right, and then we found out that it's not that bad. We started opening back up. But anyway, that was released on purpose. Alright? And it was a cover for the vote by mail. The demon rats, they wanted that to be drawn out all the way till November. So they basically wanted to destroy the economy, keep us locked down, miserable, starving, broke, in despair. all the way until November, so that by the time November came, we would be, voting for them. But it failed. Just like all their plans failed, because they're not fighting against President Trump. They're fighting against the Almighty. All right? They're fighting against the one who knows the end from the beginning. It's like, how ridiculous are they trying to fight against the Almighty? Okay? The Almighty chose President Trump. Like I said in the last video, he could choose whoever he wants. Right? We're all sinners. These holier-than-thou people crying about this and that. Oh, he talks a little too harsh. Give me a break. But anyway, so that's what that was all about. They did all that, which is equivalent to Elijah when the false prophets were stabbing themselves. So they basically were stabbing themselves to try, it's all about the vote by mail. Because the electronic has been secured by the NSA. So they can't cheat electronically anymore. And they don't have their illegals. And Judicial Watch has been cleaning up has been doing a lot of, forcing the states to clean up their rolls. Because the only way they can win is cheating. The only way they can win is by deceiving. They can't win on substance. They can't win on truth. They can't win on issues. Because they're all failures in all them categories, right? They can't tell the truth. Everything they do is propaganda. Like, if you look at them, even these riots, it's all based off of the Nazi party. Alright? So they released the virus on purpose to destroy the economy, because their ultimate goal, they're globalists, all right? The Democrat Party is the globalist party in America, right? And they're all working towards a one world order, a new world order, all right? And the 16-year plan was supposed to finish off America, okay? Obama was the first 8 years, and then Hillary was supposed to be the final 8 years. And by the time Hillary was done, America was going to be nothing, and then they were going to bring about their one world government to solve the problems of the world. Because everything would have been in chaos from World War and everything else that they had planned to do. But she lost. Okay? So they're still trying to continue with that plan, but it's not working. Because President Trump, the anti-Elijah, and the Patriots are defeating them. Why? Because they know. They know the plan. They know their playbook. Alright? So once they seen that the pandemic, or as I say, the Dem panic, once they realized that that was going to fail, they had to go to Plan B, which was the pre-orchestrated riots. Alright, and that was all by design. Okay, and like I said, it's all following Nazism. Alright? The Hitler Youth, when they were formed under the SA, what did they do? They went and they terrorized Berlin. They terrorized, rioted, bullied, okay? And they called for the disbandment of the police, just like they're doing now. And then once they got rid of the police in Berlin, who became the police? The brown shirts, the Hitler Youth. And then what did they do once they got into authority? They terrorized anybody who didn't toe the line, who spoke out against them or anything like that. Right? Same thing with the propaganda. The demon rat propaganda is all based off of Nazi propaganda. Okay. They said what the Nazis did is they would blame the opponent for everything that they were guilty of. And they would keep repeating lies over and over and over with the goal that people would believe. Alright? The New World Order, it's the Fourth Reich. Alright? That's all it is. You know, if you do a little research on this stuff, it's obvious. Most of the hierarchy in Nazi Germany, once they were defeated, they came to America. And they went to other places. And they went underground. And they built a hidden empire, which what we call today the deep state. And who do you think was assisting them that whole time? Yeah, that's right, the enemy. And even that Russian lady who was in the Russian government a couple months before 9/11 happened, she made a statement. She said that there is a underground, hidden, criminal, global organization that controls trillions of dollars, and that they're about to do something. And then next thing you know, 9/11. And if you did any research into that, it's mind-boggling how wicked they are, and sneaky and deceitful. And I personally believe that that's one of the underlying issues as to why President Trump chose to put his nice, cushy life on hold and to put himself out there to be used and abused the way he's been. Because think about it, come on, man. He's a billionaire. And he put that all down to become president. And all they've done from day one is attempt to destroy him. You know what I think one of his motivations are? Is that he knows who did 9/11. And he's one of them type of people that are loyal to his team, you know. But there's some people, it doesn't matter how crappy this one Ford car is or this one Ford truck is, that to them, Ford is the best, no matter what. Or like their football team, you know. They could be 0-20, but they're still the best. Well, that's how President Trump is. He's loyal to the home team. And they did 9/11 to his backyard. And I think that's what one of the main motivators in his life is for doing what he's doing. Because he's going to get them. Like he says, he caught them all. Right? And then now they're doing the riots. I mean, come on. They're burning down cities and the media is acting like it's not a big deal. Right? And like the big thing that the hierarchy in the Demon Rat Party is, all they have to say is to vote. They're burning down the cities, looting, raping, pillaging, killing, and all they have to say is get out and vote. Come on, people. Frankly, I don't see how anybody with two brain cells to rub together can vote for the Demon Rat Party after 2012. Like, I understand, you might have gave Bambi the benefit of the doubt for the first time. I mean, I would have rather cut my arm off with a rusty spoon before I would vote for that scumbag. But I can understand if, somebody wasn't up to date with their current events and, trying to give the benefit of the doubt. But after 2012, you got serious mental issues if you still think that they have a shred, a nanoparticle of decency in them. I mean, President Trump has brought out their true colors, and they are just no low is too low. I mean, they make wickedness look okay. They're so despicable. But anyway, I brought that up is because this here picture right here, this lightning strike, I believe, is actually Gabriel. Right? Because when you look, I believe it was Ezekiel when he described seeing the holy angels. He said they went to and fro like lightning. All right. And okay, here we are. Let's see what happened here. Let's see if we can get this back. All right, there we are. So now this is a picture of Washington, D.C. I believe it was Thursday the 4th. Okay. And you see these lightning strikes. Alright. But you see that first one? Right over there is the Pentagon. Alright? Wham! You see that? Now, most lightning strikes, they have them like branches. But if you see this one, it's boom. And then when you take into consideration where a couple people in Scripture says that the angels, the holy angels, go to and fro like lightning. And then when you understand that Gabriel is over the camp of Ephraim and that the United States of America is the end time Ephraim, the hammer of the Almighty, I'm convinced that right there is Gabriel going down to the Pentagon to talk to the Patriots, giving them the, what's going to happen in the future speech and what we got to do to defeat the enemy. All right? So that's what I'm saying. It's like trying to go against the Almighty. You know, like how ridiculous. The Almighty knows the end from the beginning. But anyway, I hope this helped. I know I rambled on for a long time. But may the will of Yahuwah be done in the name of his only begotten Son, Yahushua. And like I said, hopefully I can have that calendar video out before next weekend. So until then, take care, and if the open door does happen, hopefully I see you all up there in Kodesh, Jerusalem, throwing our crowns to the Almighty, high-fiving each other, hugging our wonderful Messiah.